Hey everybody, welcome back. Craig Shoup here with George Thomas, our Akron Beacon Journal film critic. George is here. George, it's we're recording this on Leap Day, so we're still a day before March, but honestly, I feel like we are out of the
Darkness.
movie the movie darkness rut that is January and February. And a lot of that is because tomorrow is the release of Dune Part Two, the much anticipated sequel, which was supposed to come out last year and then got pushed back amid all the writer strikes and everything going on. So it gets a March 1st release, 2024. And is it worth the wait, George?
I don't know if any movie's ever worth the wait, but I like the fact that you and I are on the same page with
Yes.
with feeling as if we're coming out of this great morass of just
Yeah.
cinematic torture.
It should be a
So
holiday. It needs
yeah,
to be. It needs to become a holiday in the world here.
it wasn't like that for the longest. Back in the 90s, it was
Yeah.
like this. And then they realized they could make money, and it wasn't like this. But to get to your, I don't know if any movie's worth the wait. Um, Dune is certainly an event.
Yeah.
Um, it's a blockbuster, I'd say, without really being a blockbuster because there is some gravitas there.
Right.
You follow what I'm saying?
Yeah.
By the same token, it's just a massive, impressive cinematic achievement with scope that you don't see in any film, let alone a science fiction film.
Right.
Um, you know, and I like to consider myself a fan of sci-fi. Um, when I think of science fiction films with scope, with meaning, I'm down. Don't give me Star Wars. Do not. More recently, you can give me a couple Nolan films. I think you know what they are. But I go back even further to CE3K, Close Encounters of the Third Kind.
Yeah.
That science fiction with a scope. That being said, Denis Villeneuve has such respect for his audience. He's basically said, "This isn't a complete project. You need to go back and you need to check out the first part. Here's
Well,
the second part,
yeah.
and I'm going to be working on the third part."
Well, it's funny you bring that up because I read your review in the Beacon Journal, beaconjournal.com, for all of George's insights into the film world. And one thing that stood out was you had mentioned that you watched Dune 2 before you watched the first Dune from Denis Villeneuve. So,
No, I saw it in the theaters.
okay.
I saw Dune Part 1 in the original, in
Oh,
the
okay. Okay.
first
Okay.
run.
Okay.
The thing is, though, it's so dense
Yes.
that getting a refresher is only going to help you.
Okay.
And I found that after I the critic screening, the critics only screening, where there were like six, seven of us in the theater, getting our faces blown off. Th- that screening was a week ago Monday.
Yeah.
What they call the promo screening, which critics normally get to go to along with an audience, was this past Monday. Now, I I went to the critic screening not having revisited the first
Okay.
one.
Okay.
My wife was going to the promo screening with or without me Monday, and I decided I'm going to check it out again. But she's like,
Okay.
she had the day off, and she's like, "Can we watch Dune Part One again?" I'm like, "Sure."
Yeah.
And what shocked me was just how dense it turns out this all is.
Right.
You kind of had it then, but you didn't, because I will say that part one is more visual. You know what I mean? He's telling the story more with
Yes.
his lens than with words.
Yeah.
Um,
There was a lot going on, and I enjoyed part one, but it is definitely not one of Villeneuve's best works,
Yeah.
but it's still a visual masterpiece of just gorgeous photography, gorgeous special effects, creativity. But you're right, there's a lot of density, there's a lot of characters that are introduced. It's not very dialogue driven, and you kind of, after watching it, you kind of know that it's setting up the rest of the series of Dune movies. And that's why, and I know we talked a little bit about this with the Across the Spider-Verse last year, where as a standalone movie, it's really good. As a portion of this trilogy they're working on, it's great because they leave a lot of cliffhangers in that movie that in a normal standard standalone movie they probably wouldn't, but it's another of that cog in the wheel that's getting you to the finish line. And Dune Part 1 felt like that, where it was an incomplete first chapter, literally first chapter of what's to come.
Oh, absolutely. And you know what? Part two, without giving away too much, that element is still there.
Sure.
As
Right.
we're dealing with Paul Atreides' basic. For anyone who knows the story, you're too young to remember this. I remember when the Dune books hit
Right.
when I was in high school, and everybody was reading it. I'm like, "What's this?" No, I was too busy getting. But that entire story is fascinating. I mean, and it just shows me how much respect he has for the source material.
Yeah.
Number one. Number two, it shows me how much respect he has for the audience. Because you know what? He's Villeneuve, he's an artist. I don't think he cares much about mainstream popularity. Obviously, any filmmaker is going to care about it to some degree. I don't think he cares about it to a certain degree. I think he has artistic integrity, and it seems like with both these movies that it's a case of you're either with me or you're not with me, and I'm going to do what I need to do to tell the story I want to tell. And he's got Warner Brothers checkbook, and he's got their seal of approval, and they're counting on stuff. We'll see what happens. It's like I wrote in my review, though. With any Villeneuve film, there's always a narrative issue somewhere, and this one has it in its third act. And I went back, I examined it. My wife explained it away. I'm like, right, fine, you can do it. That's cool. I mean, I can see where you're coming from with that, and it's like it's something you can overlook.
Mm-hmm.
The craftsmanship is so good, and the rest of it is so good, including the performances. Although it takes a while to, it's striking seeing how mousy Timothée Chalamet looks in Part One.
Okay.
And watching him evolve in Part Two.
Okay.
And it's a testament to his skill that you eventually buy into him as this messiah-like figure that serves to inspire people.
Right. Well, I'm glad to hear you enjoyed the movie. Obviously, I'm a Villeneuve fan. I really love a lot of his work. Prisoners, Arrival, Sicario, Blade Runner 2049. I thought was arguably a step up from the Ridley Scott masterwork, in my opinion, because it had a little bit more human feeling to it in a lot of ways. And I really feel like you're right. Narratively, I don't know that he's found the same kind of footing maybe as like Christopher Nolan has with epic filmmaking. But you're right, though. He is just a beautiful artist that just puts it on the screen like it deserves to be in a museum. It really, and that's, you could argue with that with a lot of his filmmaking, and just, I think he's finding a groove, and obviously Dune is going to allow him, once he's done with the franchise, to essentially do whatever he wants at that point. If he wants to, do something a little bit more meek, and maybe a little bit less, over the top and fantasy and overindulgent in terms of screen presence, he could do that, or he could continue, in this Christopher Nolan like path where you give him 200-300 million dollars and just let him go to work, and whatever he wants to do, he'll do, and he'll do it on a big scope.
Here's what, he's on the record saying, and I haven't checked box office tracking on this on Part Two yet. He's on the record as saying he's developing Dune Messiah.
Right.
I don't know that he has a script or whatever, but what happens if this doesn't light it up at the box office? Do we see that third film? I mean, let's face it, part of it's technology, but part of it is the artist's vision. Even if you're talking about David Lynch, this is light years above anything Dune related on screen.
Yeah,
light years. So I'm interested to see what's going to happen with that third movie.
Can you see them doing that though? Like, I know what you mean, because you don't want to all of a sudden commit to putting another $300-400 million into another project that might not make money. In Dune 1, it was sort of that it came out maybe at the end of the scare tactic, or however you want to say, like, don't go to theaters because the pandemic is still there, so people were maybe apprehensive. And, so maybe there was a little bit of leeway, and it made like $400 million worldwide, which obviously isn't much for a movie of this scale. But I mean, do you feel like what would have to happen for Warner Brothers to say, no, we're not giving probably our last remaining like creative artist that makes movies on big scale the green light for another passion of making a third in the series?
It would have to fizzle out like Fantastic Beasts, because Warner Brothers is on the record as being, they will do that. Yeah. Fantastic. I mean, you pull the rug out of J.K. Rowling. Fantastic Beasts was supposed to be a five-part series, and right. I think they're done.
Right. Well, they've got more investment though with Dune, because they don't they have the series coming to Max at some point. It's been in development with like the Sisters of Dune or something like that. So it feels like they want to try to make Dune work. But I mean, if they do another 400 million or maybe 500 million here, do you think Warner Brothers is going to pull the plug, or do they need to do like $1 billion, like big franchise type movies need to do?
It's not that type of movie. And the only thing I can think of that I could compare this situation to and compare it to with Warner Brothers is go back to your Wayback Machine and one of our favorite guys, Christopher Nolan, right?
Yeah.
Batman Begins. Yeah. I did that. It's one of the last junkets I did as a movie critic. And I remember being at interviews and, critics talk in between roundtable interviews. And the big question was, do we need another Batman movie already? What do we think this is going to do?
Mm-hmm.
And I Batman Begins did in the fives, ultimately. And everybody was questioning whether there was a sequel coming.
Actually, Batman Begins only did 375 total.
You sure that's not global?
Global. I've got on Box Office Mojo 206 domestic, 168 international for 375.
I thought it was in the fives. So hey, I don't mind being corrected that way, because why? I look like a genius.
But I think the biggest problem though is when you're looking at how filmmaking is done these days versus then, even, which I know it's only 19 years ago, but the cost of filmmaking is so much more that you're pouring in hundreds of millions of dollars for your production and then you've got marketing and things like that that are probably in the $100 million range or more. So you're talking, who knows what Dune's total budget was, but you could be looking at a 300, $400 million total, investment. And, they probably are thinking we need more like Dark Knight box office totals to try to justify a third.
Well, that and actually, part two was only 190.
Okay. Well, good. That's good.
Part two was 160, or part one was 165.
Okay.
But that's why I'm making that comparison. I think Warner Brothers with Batman Begins was willing to invest in the setup, and it seems like they were willing to invest in the setup with part one, and they're waiting for the payoff in the final two entries. Whoever's listening to this, I'll tell you point blank: refresh your memory before you go into this thing.
Yeah.
Without a doubt. It will only enhance your enjoyment.
Okay. Well, and obviously you can read George's review, A- from you, so very high praise from you. Wanted to ask too, this is it's so, the material's so dense and there's so much going on, so many characters. A lot of times you get into this, how good is the villain? That's how you kind of judge a lot of superhero movies these days, like a Dark Knight with Heath Ledger as the Joker. The Batman was very successful with Paul Dano and Colin Farrell, playing villains in that franchise kickstart. Austin Butler, who we talked about a little bit ago with Masters of the Air, is here. Dave Bautista, Stellan Skarsgård. I mean, what do you make of the villains? I mean, is there a rooting interest for the Paul Atreides character to overcome these like just sadistic villains that are hell bent on world domination?
It's more like you're rooting for the framing people.
Okay.
In Atreides, because you said it. They're basically sadistic bastards now. It's interesting to watch all three of their portrayals. I mean, they're amoral. Stellan Skarsgård gets, or is he Skarsgård or Sarsgaard?
Scars.
Okay, he's got more to chew on.
Okay.
It's interesting to see Austin Butler because he's like an emotionless animal, rabid animal, and he's having fun with it. It's not over the top fun, but you can see he's reveling in this role. I mean, if he wasn't such a pretty boy, he'd be unrecognizable. Yeah. But his physical features are so striking, and he is. Here's my man card. Here's me being metrosexual. Okay, he's so very, very attractive.
He's a good-looking guy. Yeah.
Yeah, that you recognize him, but it's a nice portrayal. It really is, and he has fun with it. Yeah. Dave Bautista. Picture Drax without the inadvertent humor.
Okay.
And meaner.
Yeah.
That's the best way to put it. But Christopher Walken shows up as the Emperor.
Yeah, I was going to ask about that because Christopher Walken is he's Christopher Walken's on screen when he starts talking. Like even if you can't see him, it's Christopher Walken. I mean, how is his I guess you would call it his unique cadence represented here in Dune 2?
It would have been more at home in Dune 1.
Okay.
But he's always had an expressive face in all his performances. Yeah. And that's where you see all of his acting. Is his face, his body language, his movements. Who really did it for me, and you can mark this on your calendar. Don't be surprised to see Javier Bardem get an Oscar nomination.
Really, I love Javier Bardem,
I
and
mean,
I'm glad to hear you say that because I think like I am going to have to revisit, and I'm going to have to do it soon because I'm seeing Dune 2 tomorrow night. But I felt like Javier Bardem was kind of underutilized in Part One.
he's not here. He was in
Great.
Part One, but he's definitely in some ways he's got the most to chew on because he has to be this mentor figure, a warrior,
Mm-hmm.
a I don't want to say worshiper, but a follower. And his performance is a joy. It
Yeah.
really is.
Well, that's good to hear. I mean, obviously we're very, very early in the year, and after the first month and a half or 2 months, we know there aren't a lot of contenders right now. But I mean, does Dune 2 look like it's going to ride the wave the rest of the year and probably fit into that Oscar top 10?
Uh,
Maybe not Villeneuve for best director, but probably going to get more than just the technical award categories nominated.
I'm not going there. I refuse to do that. Here it is. And the fanboys online. I saw a couple Reddit posts where everybody's predicting Oscars for this movie already for next year, and I'm like, and then they said, well, this could be what's the middle Lord of the Rings film?
Oh, the Two Towers.
Uh, Somebody said this could be as good as the Two Towers, blah 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 blah, and I'm like, no, you want it, Return of the King, because that's the one. If this series, this movie ever gets any recognition, it's gonna be like what happened with Lord of the Rings, and that was basically a cumulative award for bringing such a film of ambition and scope to the screen and maintaining consistency with the series. That's what those awards for Peter Jackson was. So talk to me after Dune Messiah.
Okay. Well, I mean, Dune Part One did win six Oscars.
Yeah, but they were technical, man.
Well, but it was also nominated though in adapted screenplay, which is probably a surprise for a movie like that. You don't really expect it. Obviously, cinematography and but it was also a Best Picture nominee, which again we're in that
10 films.
watered down version of 10 films has to be 10 films, and I'm not a big fan of that.
And we're
But
going back to the tail end of the pandemic.
yeah, that is true too. That is a good point. So
I'm one of these weirdos who don't give a lot of countenance to technical Oscars. Okay. So I get what you're saying, but okay, that's yeah.
Well, you kind of look when you're looking at the year as a snapshot, and obviously there's a lot of stuff that hasn't been announced yet or hasn't been put on the calendar yet, so you don't really know. But you go into it like last year, everybody knew you had Scorsese and you had Nolan on the books for movies coming out, and the anticipation would be those would be great. Well, this year you don't really have like a Scorsese that has a movie set for a release or a Spielberg or you don't really see that right now. So, I kind of think about it like, well, what's the year going to look like? Could it be a down year? And then if it is, you'd think that Dune would have a pretty good shot of scoring another pile of nominations like it did the first time around.
Well, I generally don't give anything any credit for future nominations this early in the year. I mean, in the past, I learned my lesson in the past with Saving Private Ryan and Seabiscuit.
Well, tell those stories. You've got me intrigued.
No, what I'm just meaning that they had Oscar pedigree written all over them, and they were released in the summer.
Right.
And that they became the earliest times I ever said Oscar winner.
Okay.
Oscar pedigree. This is going to get nominations for this, and this.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, I mean, like you said, it kind of lend itself, especially Saving Private Ryan. But do you think Dune's early release here is too early for, if you're trying to Oscar hunt for awards or at least nominations? Do you think that they'd have been better off if they were going to push it back a full year and have it release in the fall like the last fall plan was?
I honestly, I think Warner Brothers knew that this was going to be the first marquee film of the year, and they were
Yeah,
perfectly content to come out guns a blazing, clearing the decks, whatever you want to call it. Because the next big release, I think, is Ghostbusters,
right.
followed by Warner Brothers again with Kong and Godzilla, which I'm real strangely looking forward to. So we'll see.
Well, they've hit some they've hit really good. I know we talked about this when you reviewed Godzilla versus Kong. I think they've found like a tone that works for those movies where they're kind of B movie ish, over the top, just popcorn entertainment, and that's good. There's a little bit of heart and human element to it, but at the end of the day, it's kind of just like, hey, here are two monsters fighting on screen. This is what you want in a Kong versus Godzilla movie.
I forgot Kung Fu Panda. You're absolutely right. Um, so I think they knew. So I think they're perfectly willing to clean up for. It looks like I don't think the Kung Fu Panda and Dune audience is going to cross over much.
No, no, yeah.
So
I'm kind of surprised though that Godzilla versus Kong: The New Empire is coming out 28 days. I mean, it doesn't seem like much, but then it is 4 weeks. But I mean, don't you think they'd want to give Dune a little bit of breathing space before they would come out with another blockbuster?
you'd think so, but I also think Godzilla versus Kong might be just a smidge more mainstream. Number one and number two. Let's face it, they're gonna get some business based on what was the Godzilla movie from Japan that played
Oh,
during.
Godzilla -1, yeah.
Yeah, I mean they're. I think there's going to be some piggybacking there.
Okay. Well,
Uh,
if I'm not mistaken, they did move Godzilla versus Kong: The New Empire up to March 29th. I thought it was slated for April release initially, so I think they actually moved that up. So maybe you're right; they're trying to piggyback off of some of the Godzilla word of mouth right now.
why not strike with the iron's hot? But
Yeah.
yeah, I think they knew what they were doing, and I we shall see.
Okay.
That's the
All
best
right.
way to put it.
And I know that you had mentioned this to me privately, but obviously you're encouraging everybody to see this
On the biggest,
biggest screen, Dolby
loudest
Atmos.
audio possible.
Yeah.
I mean, with all due respect, I got my face blown off, and I loved every minute.
Did you see it in IMAX or Dolby Cinema or?
Cinemark XD,
Okay, okay,
theater number 13 at Valley View.
okay.
Um, the audio was explosive without being obnoxious. I mean, it 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 put you in the middle of the action, and you felt. I
Right.
could have swore the speakers kicked up a breeze.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting there thinking, as this is going on, damn, this is going to sound great at home.
Yeah.
Mother's going to try and kick me out of my own house because I'm going to crank the hell out of it. But yeah, the biggest, loudest, best theater you can get to. Absolutely. So if you're listening there in Tennessee, find the biggest.
Yeah. We're kind of spoiled here, to be honest with you, because within shouting distance, we have the IMAX theater that Christopher Nolan retrofitted for 70 millimeter last year for Oppenheimer. We have a Dolby Cinema that's about 50 miles away. So we've got IMAX. but I'm very intrigued because we have Dolby Cinema, which normally Dolby Cinema, like the last Dolby Cinema movie we saw was Barbie, and it looked great because it kind of lends itself to the color palette. Obviously, Dune is a little bit more reserved in their color palette compared to Barbie, which who isn't. But I'm kind of wondering, where we should go with this because I'm pretty sure if I'm going to look really quick, but I know we have the 4X, or the what you saw it in, which is the 4DX. But I'm thinking this was going to be maybe projected at the mall that has the 70 millimeter print. Maybe.
Oh, lucky you, because we don't have a theater that does that around here, and it's like Westlake Park claims it, and it's like I got into a big debate online. It wasn't a big debate. Somebody mentioning or asked if there was an IMAX theater around here. I'm like, and I replied, well, Cracker Park claims to be an IMAX theater, but no,
But didn't
it's not.
but it doesn't Valley View though? I mean, they had that theater that you saw Dune in retrofitted for. I saw Dunkirk in 70 millimeter at Valley View way back when, 10 years ago.
Well, they don't. They have 70x. They have 70 millimeter. They can project so, but they
But
can't do IMAX. I mean,
okay,
they'd rather have their proprietary system in there, which is XD.
makes sense. Okay, which I did just look. Yep, Dune IMAX 70 millimeter. Oh man, probably gonna be seeing it again. I want to see it in Dolby Cinema, but then I'm also like, IMAX 70 millimeter. That was a pretty great experience with Oppenheimer, and kind of feel like I got to do that again there.
Go for it.
Yeah, it's just money, right? It's just like $22 a ticket or whatever.
Well, look, is it? Yeah,
Our tickets, we're seeing the movie with a group of friends from work, and just for like a standard show, now I'll be at 8:30 at night on a Friday. It's like $19 a ticket in Tennessee. It's expensive down here.
See, I haven't really paid for a movie, and
Right. Yeah.
for obvious reasons. But we my when we I'll tell you what we do. We belong to the Cinemax Movie Club. My wife
Okay.
does.
We don't even have Cinemark down here.
Yeah. Well, and here this should tell you something. It's $10. You get a ticket every month, right?
Right. Right. Yeah.
On my wife's account, there are 24 unused tickets,
Oh, so you're stacking them up here, huh?
and that's just with work and everything. That's just the way it rolls, and it's like
Yeah.
normally she's with me, so
Yeah.
I mean it's possible we'll check something out this weekend. I've got a morbid curiosity about the new Spider Woman whatever movie.
Oh, Madam Web. Oh, wow. If you see that, we have to discuss. I did not see it, but we have to discuss if you go to the theater.
The tickets, the Cinemark movie club, the tickets are still $12, so I'm wasting two for that is debatable, but we'll see. Depends on how bored we get Saturday.
An 11 p.m. screening of IMAX 70 millimeter for Dune 2 is $24.31.
Really?
And that's before tax and fees. So yeah, that's
really
it's a haul. You got to take out like a second mortgage to go to the movies sometimes these days down here. But yeah, I will say it's worth it. It's totally worth the 70 millimeter. Or when we've gone to Dolby Cinema, I feel like it's definitely worth it. But it's expensive though.
Dude, I paid $12.50 to see Van Halen on the 1984 tour.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah, not anymore. I gotta check out the Dolby Cinema prices because I'm sure that's not cheap either for this one.
Let's see what Cinemark is charging.
That's weird. It's what we have not gone. I haven't been to a Cinemark in forever because we don't have Cinemark in Tennessee. $22.49 for Dolby Vision or Dolby Cinema.
Wow,
pretty reasonable considering. It does give you an immense screen, IMAX style, great visuals, and the Dolby Atmos tracks are always pretty spectacular.
Let's see. Looking. Looking. See, that's on a small screen. I would never do that.
Mhm. I think they're trying to entice people to join their movie clubs, which makes sense. I get it, and but because you can go into we have Regal and AMC down here primarily, but I think they're definitely trying to inspire you to just pay the $19 or 20 whatever dollars a month it is just to get the unlimited movies or the 3 movies a week or whatever they offer. But yeah, the cheapest Dolby Vision would be 11:30 a.m. That's $18 per ticket.
All right. XD Auditorium 13, 1750.
That's not bad. I'm kind of curious, and again, like we have a higher sales tax, so we have 9% sales tax down here. So you buy a ticket down here, you're really you're really paying for it. I would say I gotta look at the XD stuff though, because I've never been to the XD theaters. I mean, I don't know. Are they good? I mean, are those the 4DX theaters? Are they good?
You saw Dunkirk in one.
Okay.
Yeah, and 7 p.m. tomorrow is sold out.
Got to check our ticket prices. I can only imagine how much I'm sure the XDs are probably in the 20 range, I would guess, but
Yeah, here's hoping I keep my movie contacts after
right. You're gonna have to open up a GoFundMe account to support your movie habit.
man. Although I'll probably start a blog after I retire.
There you go. Stick with it, and yeah. Oh wow. Whew. 4D prices. 4DX. $25.23. That's before tax and fees if you're on Fandango.
Yikes.
That's expensive. Whew. I thought we paid a lot when we saw Anyone But You at like our local theater because it would be cheaper than going to like Nashville or whatever. But wow, whew, $25 for a ticket.
Yeah. I might have to stop going to movies at that price.
No, you got to be. That's why I'm very selective about movies. I see a lot of people like, "Oh, you love movies," and I do, but I also look at it like, well, I don't want to spend like $100 to watch a movie that I'm kind of,
Yeah, and that's the big difference. Although my wife and I will go to a matinee.
Yeah,
It's an adult oriented film where we know there are no weasels going to be. We will.
Yeah,
I think matinees are still reasonable around here.
Yeah, we do every now and then get like a 10 or 20% off tickets for a matinee show. So yeah, I mean, matinees are a good way to try to squeeze in some cheaper movie options, but I don't think you're going to get the percentage ticket discount on Dune Part 2 though. So,
Actually,
oh, you can?
it's reasonable. 10 a.m. on a Saturday morning is $9.25.
That's not bad at all. That's not bad at all.
See, we've done 11:30 in the morning a couple times. Like Oppenheimer was the first screening of the day on a Saturday at 11:30. So that's where I saw it.
Okay.
At Valley View.
It's amazing. It's amazing to think. I'm looking at IMAX prices. IMAX is cheaper than Dolby, then 70 millimeter, of course, and then also the 4DX. Like it's $21.94 for an IMAX ticket, just a standard IMAX.
See, even a matinee for the XD showing is $12.75.
Wow, that's They're like giving it away now, George. You guys are lucky up there.
I'm finding it hard to understand why you guys are more expensive now.
I don't get it. The first time I noticed it was when we were vacationers. We were tourists coming down here to vacation and all that stuff. And we went to a movie once and it was pretty expensive. And obviously living in Sandusky, the Cinemark there, it's not that expensive. But you know me. I've gone to Westlake, I've gone to Valley View, I've gone to Columbus theaters, and I know that movies get expensive at those cities. But I have never seen the same prices like this at Nashville. And that was like 4 or 5, 6 years ago or whatever that we went to a movie, and I'm like, yeah, it's different down here. And that was before tax and everything.
I remember freaking out when the last time I saw a movie in Los Angeles was Gran Torino when I was covering the Cavs. And I remember freaking out because the ticket was $15. Now I freaked out, but I was traveling, so it was on the company.
Right.
But yeah. And see that, and I thought that was expensive, and then New York City was at $15-$16 in the early 2000s. In the late 90s, when I go on junkets, and when we weren't seeing movies, we'd go see movies.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? If there wasn't a movie, we catch something else. But those were more than a decade apart. So
a 4DX matinee is $22.
Ooh.
Even a standard matinee for just a normal standard screen is $14. It's pricey down here, man. Now I'm glad I'm selective about movies. I don't know. I like watching movies, but man, I tell you what, if I'm not interested in like it's got to be a theatrical experience, I'm kind of like waiting for streaming or something and just taking my chances on a lack of better audio, I guess.
The studios are making that decision easy for you these days. We'll see what happens after the first 6 months of this year. But
absolutely,
rehash like Twisters isn't giving me a lot of confidence. So,
well, I don't know. Looking at the calendar so far, I mean, I'm interested in the Ryan Gosling stuntman movie.
The Fall Guy.
Yeah, that does look a little fun. It looks like it's going to have a lot of fun with itself and not take itself too seriously. And
he's saying, "I'm just kidding." He gets the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah. So I mean, that's probably one movie that it kind of reminded me, and a movie that you kind of turned me on to, which was Free Guy, the Ryan Reynolds video game movie that just kind of worked. It had a good tone to it, and it just worked. And I kind of get the same vibes with The Fall Guy.
Here's my prediction for The Fall Guy. It will bring back the romantic comedy.
Okay. I hope so.
Because I'm pretty sure it's a romantic comedy action hybrid.
Right. Yeah, because Emily Blunt's the director, and they're kind of together. And yeah.
So, and you're absolutely right. It looks fun, but beyond that, beyond Kong and Godzilla and Twisters, only because of the commercials, and me thinking, okay, so we're going back to the movie that changed the box office release patterns in film with a sequel with a bunch of no names in the cast. Okay, and it was funny. My son and I were having a debate because I said, he goes, "You looking forward to Twisters? That looks so cool." I'm like, dude, I saw Twister in the theater. It's not, and Twister was just a movie, but it wasn't just a movie because Twister impacted theatrical history. And I looked at him and I said, these are just a bunch of no names. And he started listing off who these people were. I'm like, I don't know who these people are. I knew who Bill Paxton and Helen Hunt was back then.
Right. Here's where I don't get Twisters. It seems like small potato scope when you're talking about the shock and all schlock movies of like Roland Emmerich and all these other movies where it's like the whole world is collapsing on its core or whatever. And here it's like, well, what are you going to do? Have like tornadoes across the country? Okay, who cares? We've seen 2012. We've seen, The Day After Tomorrow, all of these movies that have sort of expanded the scope of what the original Twister was, and now it just seems like it's small potatoes in terms of its scale when you're just talking about twisters. Maybe I'm wrong, but that's the way I look at it.
I, you know, I don't know. Maybe they're going to pitch this as a throwback to just your basic disaster film. I don't know. Um, there was a time when that was all the rage in Hollywood. I don't know if audiences this what is it, Gen Z, Gen X,
Yeah,
is that my generation? I'm not sure.
I think it would be Gen Z now.
No, we're on Gen Z. That's the 20 somethings, I
Oh,
think.
okay.
Um, I don't know if they're going to be interested. And I'm perusing the release calendar. Here you go. Something I'm looking forward to. The Monkey Man. Don't ask me why.
Oh well, Dev Patel, yeah.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that.
Well, it's not a sequel, I mean, maybe it's a derivative piece from John Wick series or whatever you want to call it, but at least it's something new and it doesn't have the word two at the end of it either, and maybe it's something original that we can hold out hope for.
Correct. Let's see. After that, it's like, I mean, the Fall Guy is May 3rd, and they're re-releasing the Phantom Menace. Oh
Oh, okay.
my God, why? Okay, I kind of like the Phantom Menace.
I like the Phantom Menace. Attack of the Clones was not it though.
No. Um, there. To my way of thinking, there are a lot of holes in this early summer calendar. It's you go from the Fall Guy to Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, and after that, I'm not seeing anything until Furiosa.
Yeah, you got If, which is John Krasinski, but that looks like it's going to be a step back for him. I don't know. Maybe it won't, but yeah,
It's his play for Whimsy.
yeah.
Um, we get a Bad Boys 4. Don't ask me why I like those dumbass movies, but I do.
Is Martin Lawrence not in that? Because I've not seen him on the cast list, and maybe I'm just not looking enough. But
You can't do a Bad Boys movie without Martin Lawrence. But I'm pretty sure, yes, he is.
okay.
I mean, yeah, yeah, yeah.
I don't know why. The more I think I don't want to know any more than I already know. But the Horizon American Saga series from Kevin Costner kind of intrigues me. But I feel like it's the kind of series that the more I watch trailers or find out about it, the less I'll be interested in it.
A Western
Yeah,
Costner?
like a Civil War post Reconstruction kind of like, but it's going to be done in like 4 parts, and I know at least 2 of them are coming out. One's in June, one's in August. So there's an intrigue there, like, oh, this is like Costner coming back, and maybe this is like Oscar bait, but then it's also like a summer release. So, does Warner Brothers really think it's an Oscar movie? I don't know. We'll see. But I feel like it's an interesting premise that I wouldn't mind seeing. But then I also feel like the more I see of it, I'll probably not want to see it.
Yeah, he's really digging into that Yellowstone cred, isn't he?
Yes. Basically, he's trying to make a Yellowstone movie without really being able to call it Yellowstone, I guess.
Yeah, Kevin Costner doing a Western. Who would have thought? He even did a dystopian film that was a Western.
Yeah.
So,
All right. Well, what do you have coming up on the horizon? I know we mentioned Kung Fu Panda. Are you going to have Kung Fu Panda 4 next week?
Let me check the screening because I don't remember. I don't remember getting a screening notice. At least it's easy to search for Kung Fu.
Yeah.
Uh, I just might. The screening is Tuesday.
All right. Well, we'll have to keep the fans waiting on that. We'll hopefully be able to talk, but if not, we can always tack it on to the next week. But as always, George, appreciate you stopping by once again and giving us all the excitement on Dune Part Two. As always, you can follow George at by George Thomas on social media, and of course, read all of his reviews at beaconjournal.com. George, I'm glad you had fun at the movies. I hope that this is a sign of good things to come in the movie industry, and especially for you, as you have to see just about all of the crap before you see the good stuff. So we always appreciate you taking the bullets for us there.
You just don't want to pay the $25.
I don't want to pay the $25. I gotta tell you real quick. My wife was pounding the door on "Let's go watch Anyone But You," and I'm like, oh. And I'm like, well, let's wait until it gets on streaming or, whatever. It's a rom-com. We don't need to see it on the big screen, do we? And I finally gave in. It was Valentine's Day week and, had to give in. But I will say that I was able to push back on Wonka. That was another movie she wanted to see in theaters. And I'm like, we could probably wait till it gets on Max. It'll be on Max soon. Nothing against it. I just, you gotta be reasonable about the $25 tickets.
So you've got Max. That's your favorite service.
That is my favorite service.
Did you watch True Detective?
I have not, but now that it's done, I'm going to try to binge and get up to date. My wife actually said she would see it, so we'll
6
see.
episodes. We're 3 in.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure I like it, but I'm watching it, and all I can think is, damn, it's good to see Jodie Foster working again.
Yeah.
She gives you hate her character, but she's great.
Yeah. Well, recent Oscar nominee Jodie Foster as well for Naiad. So maybe this is her comeback.
Well, we shall see. We can only hope so. So.
Yeah. All right, George. Well, I hope you have a good time at the movies in the future here, and hopefully the bad months of deep, dark winter depression in movies is over.
Oh,
we can all rejoice.
From your lips to the movie god's ear.
All right, George, you take care. We will talk next time.
Later.